a global pandemic. What's ahead for network operators? Welcome to the Fast Mode Videocasts. I'm Tara Neil, and in this episode, we'll be talking to Nokia. We have with us Jim Guillet, Senior Director, Product Marketing at Nokia. So, hi Jim.
Hi Tara.
So Jim, we wanted to discuss about how the telecom industry has changed in the last 8 months with the onset of the pandemic and the lockdowns and movement restrictions that followed. So today we have a couple of questions that I am sure we ask ourselves often. Will the world ever be the same again? Or in the context of the telecommunications industry, has the value proposition of operators, fixed, mobile, cable or even satellite, changed from mere providers of bandwidth and connectivity to now being the essential bridge between people and food supply, people and the workplace, and people and the government? So our question is, how has the pandemic or COVID-19 changed the role of operators?
Well, when I think about the pandemic and what we've all experienced this year, working through the issues and adapting to this sort of new normal, I think the first thing that we've become aware of as consumers is just how essential the network is to keeping us going and maintaining our digital lifestyles. Whether we're working from home, such as I'm doing right now, or online schooling, online exercise classes, or just generally keeping in touch with friends and family, the network has become an essential part of our lives. In fact, I'd say we already probably knew it was essential, especially when it didn't work. But by and large, it's stood up quite well. And I dare say that, we now think the network is imperative to our daily lives. The other aspect, I guess, would be the visibility and profile of the network operators, the men and women who build and operate these networks and have kept society going 24/7. I think the profile of the service provider as sort of a partner for society and someone who provides critical infrastructure that is allowing us to maintain lifestyles and adapt to this new normal, I think is an absolutely key observation, and their role can't be diminished or understated in how they have kept society going.
Yes, Jim. Connectivity has enabled so many economic verticals which would have otherwise come to a complete halt to keep moving. And what you said about people behind these networks who have built and maintained it for it to be operating as it is, that is something that I think the whole industry can be really proud of. So a lot of us do wonder, as nations shut down and as people turn to data networks to ensure that they are still connected to their necessities, which in today's world extends all the way from watching Netflix to ordering bread. Okay, with this surge in usage across all their networks, how do operators continue managing their networks, including physical maintenance, right from the access and all the way to the core? Because we have this pandemic fear looming around us, and there are many movement restrictions, lockdowns especially, that make it difficult for routine operations to continue as usual.
Well, one of the challenges of managing networks during the pandemic is, of course, it throws another hurdle, another obstacle in the path of what is already generally a fairly complex task, managing a very complex system. It's important that, for our customers, they've designed quality networks from the start. And by that I mean their networks have predictable performance for any mix of traffic type or loading, and equally are robust and secure to mitigate any failures and or malicious attacks. So the operations of the network can be trusted to operate continuously. Now that said, the network still underwent some significant traffic increases, basically a year's worth of traffic growth in a space of a couple of weeks. And yet they stood up quite well. Now part of that is the networks are designed for prime time traffic loading, namely, Sunday night. Well, most evenings, but in particular Sunday night around 9 o'clock is when the bulk of traffic peaks are hit, when people are streaming high quality 4K TV into their homes. And traffic definitely increased at those peak times, and certainly ate up any of the spare capacity that had put in the network, for anticipating a year's worth of growth, which I said happened in a couple of weeks. Now, during the daytime, with people working from home, the daytime loading on networks is significantly lower than the prime time, and that's really why all the additional video traffic from schooling, as well as the bidirectional video conferencing from people working from home and using Zoom exercise classes and so forth, yes, that drove traffic levels up, but certainly not to the same peaks as the residential peak demand of the Sunday night streaming video traffic levels were.
So that surge in traffic, did it entail a lot more maintenance work across the network, a lot more traffic management configurations? How did operators deal with that, especially during lockdowns?
When countries go into lockdowns and the networks that keep us going become so essential, indeed imperative, to keeping us all going, well, the networks themselves go into lockdown, meaning they're not available to be upgraded or adjusted or adapted. They freeze the configuration, because that is what drives the stability that we all needed to get us through. Now, obviously, that stability was gobbled up in terms of any spare capacity. So planning immediately began and accelerated to figure out what were the hot points, what were the key areas that needed to be refreshed, so that when the lockdown windows lifted, we could quickly get capacity into where it was needed and so forth. And a lot of this, I guess has accelerated the use of tools and automation to better understand and more quickly find out where networks are at in terms of health and congestion, so that these remedies can be implemented far faster and more automated to reduce problems and minimize the amount of troubleshooting needed. And I'd say one of the things that the pandemic has certainly done is accelerated the ability to do that, and also, with restrictions of on-site access by our crew, as well as our own, the operators' staff, the ability to do remote updates and manage the configuration and troubleshooting and insertion of the kit into live networks is now being done almost exclusively remotely, using video conferencing, much as people who are working from home are doing as well.
Interesting. I think, yes, most of the maintenance work, except that which requires physical presence, can actually be done the same way everyone else is doing it today, using remote access, things like online conferencing, cloud collaboration, and so forth, where it is possible, of course, to do so. Okay, so moving on to the last question for the session. Operators are seeing a diverse range of traffic on their networks, from bandwidth-hungry applications such as video streaming to low latency applications, and then to high priority traffic and to encrypted traffic and so forth. Managing all this traffic goes beyond increasing the capacity of existing pipes to implementing various network policies and functions and enhancements so that SLAs and service quality requirements are met. So beyond replenishing network capacity, what are the other network requirements coming from operators in their bid to continue delivering all these services?
Well, I think the big story here would be the demand for network automation as operators seek to get more agility and flexibility into their networks so they can be in turn more responsive to change. And the background to this is simply that networks interconnect things, interconnect endpoints, whether that's humans, machines, cloud resources, and sensors and so forth. And if that's your job, if the network's job is to interconnect things, then obviously we need to understand how those things we interconnect are evolving, and they're evolving quickly, both expanding in type, but also evolving in their application and migration toward cloud architectures, which ultimately leads to a set of endpoints that is becoming wider and more diverse and also more dynamic in what its needs are in terms of network services. So the network automation that's being sought is simply to accommodate a far more dynamic environment where things no longer are, set up and connectivity is established, for months on end, years on end, that the applications people use no longer are housed in, on physical hardware and fixed locations and run in perpetuity in a particular data center. Now, with cloud architectures, applications can move around, they can spin up, they can spin out, and so forth. And as a result, you're looking at a network that can dynamically match, if you will, the speed and agility of the cloud to make sure that as the endpoints and the applications move and spin up, that the network can follow them and provide the connectivity just as quickly. So, obviously when applications move into the cloud and need to be connected to branch offices or home workers, there's obviously some mechanisms that need to take place. The other thing is with 5G, we're moving to a mobile environment that's fundamentally based on cloud architectures and supports things like network slicing, where end-to-end resources can be partitioned and allocated to a particular service or a particular customer. And all of this entails interconnecting network functions that, again, were previously all on one physical entity and now are disaggregated and distributed across the network, including all the way out to edge clouds. And I guess the other aspect would be, the love of content and video continues. And so the need for a dynamic edge gateway where you can move its physical location to and fro to ensure that content insertion or video insertion and so forth occurs at the most appropriate point, both for quality experience but also for cost, is maintained. So network automation, began well before the pandemic. The pandemic, like many things, has simply accelerated society's shift to more digitalization, and network automation does same for the networks that we build with our customers.
Yes, Jim. So we see what was essentially a natural evolution towards more agile and responsive networks built around the rise of cloud and SaaS and emerging 5G use cases, now accelerated many steps ahead due to the pandemic. Well, that and the fact that networks are now an essential utility as well as a major production input for almost all economic sectors. So great speaking to you, Jim, and thank you for joining the Fast Mode video casts.
You are welcome. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
For more information, visit Nokia at nokia.com/networks/networks keep us going, and the Fast Mode at www.thefastmode.com. Bye and see you again in our next videocast series.